our world a better place. I really find most of my hope in the future of our planet when I come to events like this and see how many people are really engaged in taking care of this beautiful place that we all call home. Today, it's really my honor to introduce you to one of my favorite groups of students on the UCI campus, and that is students who are getting a minor in global sustainability. So these are students who are getting their bachelor's degree in a major that might range from economics to engineering to ecology to film and media studies to sociology and urban planning and earth system science. So they're all doing some core major for their bachelor's degree, but they come together in this year-long class sequence because of their passion for sustainability. And so in this course, they've spent the last 8 or 9 weeks researching a topic related to sustainable oceans. And we have 5 student presentations. They'll each share an overview, a little less than 5 minutes of what they research and what their topic is about. And we recognize that you can't very well see the posters from where you're sitting necessarily, so they're going to give you kind of a teaser orientation to their topic and their posters. And then what we really hope for is that after we go through these all, while you're enjoying some lunch, you'll join them out here on the wharf to talk to them about their work and learn more about the topic, and they have some little interactive bits. And so for me as an instructor, the real reward is to have the opportunity for them to speak with community members. And we've missed this kind of community engaged scholarship so much during the pandemic. So I'm really excited to be here. And I would like to turn it over now to our first student group who's going to tell you about sea level rise. So we hold this side of the poster, somebody? At least will be open? Okay. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Sophie. That's Mac, and that's Heather, and we've done our poster on the not-so-mysterious case of rising sea levels. So, living on or near the coast, you may have heard some news about property damage due to flooding or storm surges. Well, all of that can be attributed to sea level rise, or SLR, which is mostly caused by global warming. In fact, 80% of sea level rise is caused by ice melting, particularly land ice, and thermal expansion is when water expands in the ocean because it warms up. So, taking a look at our poster, you can see that there is a lot going on. So, I'm going to take it out to the audience. How much sea level rise do you guys think would be enough to totally derail coastal communities like Newport? Can I get one hand? Someone brave. Yes, you.
1 inch.
1 inch? Wow, okay. that was not what I was expecting. It's actually 3 feet. 3 feet of sea level rise would be enough, which seems like a small amount, but actually it's predicted in the US that by 2100, sea levels will probably rise about 7 feet, which is double the amount to totally destroy a lot of things. And so that's obviously going to have a lot of bad impacts, which we've listed on the left side of our poster.
Thank you. Sorry. I can come on over here. Yeah. All right, everyone. And so in the US alone, there are thousands of people that are currently living at the coasts that are living less than 3.3 feet above sea level right now. So just the changing of sea level will impact thousands of people currently living here on the coasts. And it's really, really important for us to be prepared as communities for sea level rise and the destruction that kind of comes with it. So according to the California Coastal Adaptation Planning Inventory, they've actually taken and recorded the jurisdictions that have created adaptation plans or risk assessments. And so out of 76 jurisdictions, only 22 have actually fully made an adaptation plan for sea level rise. And I want to see a show of hands. Does anyone know if Dana Point has completed an adaptation plan? Maybe partly or not at all. I want to see. All right. I'm seeing a lot. I'm seeing all right. Well, actually in part. So you guys are actually pretty ahead of the game. But there are a lot of communities that haven't done it at all. So it's really important for communities to come together to learn about that and plan. But it's really also important because we can see the effects of sea level rise right now in the present through king tide events. And so if you've never heard or seen a king tide, it is basically the largest tide of the year, and they typically happen around full or new moons. And so it's really important to be able to see how these flooding events or massive erosion is happening because of king tides, because king tides in the present is basically how sea level will be in the future. So king tides show the projected sea level rise now. So we can see kind of a glimpse in the future using these present tide forces. Yeah. All right. I'll trade it.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, so on that note about king tides and rising sea levels, another major issue that rising sea levels brings is something called seawater intrusion. And what seawater intrusion essentially is just this mixing of salt water from the oceans into our fresh water supply. So that compromises our water quality and water quantities. But this applies not only for coastal communities, but also coastal ecosystems. So creates many threats. And so there are a few causes or a few things that seawater intrusion causes. I will not go into detail here. It'll be on the posters, which you guys can check out later on. But a few of these things include soil salinization, which just means soil becoming extremely salted, biodiversity loss, and like essentially causing communities to be at risk or at greater risks of becoming flooded. And so on that note of just all these various issues that sea level rise will bring, we'll also be talking about some of the adaptation measures that local communities are currently taking.
Trade again. And so we can actually see, and of course, please feel free to come up during our breaks as well. So our communities, we can take basically three adaptation measures, which is going to be retreat, accommodate, or protect. And so for us, what we did was we did a lot of research on the community of Newport. So I really want to see a show of hands. Does anyone live in Newport or know somebody that does live in Newport? Yes. All right, cool. So please feel free to come on over and learn how your community or just neighboring community is preparing for sea level rise through protection, accommodation, and retreat.
Yeah, and if you don't want to learn about Newport, you can learn about a few different cases. We've done some research on Spain and Louisiana and other California communities.
Yeah, so we do have a QR code right over here where if you want to check out some of the organizations, further your knowledge about sea level rise and get involved with potential volunteer opportunities, you're more than welcome to scan the QR code and check it out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we're going to hear from a group that did research on marine fisheries.
Hello everybody, my name is Allison and she is Chloe. And yeah, we did our project on marine fisheries and sustainability. So marine fisheries are really important to a variety of economies across the world, and they also employ millions of people. So they're very integral to our lives in a lot of ways. But they also severely impact the environment, which is really unfortunate. So some troubling facts about it is that a lot of fisheries are completely overfished, and a lot of them do not have enough fish in order to provide enough food for their economies that they're supposed to be supporting. So some unsustainable fishing practices do include overfishing and bottom trawling. So bottom trawling is the process of where you drag this huge net all across the bottom of the ocean, and it can destroy entire ecosystems and also can catch a lot of animals that are not targeted. So animals such as dolphins and sharks, they're not often caught because they want to be used for food. They're just caught accidentally, and those totally impact the environment in a lot of different ways. And then Overfishing often occurs when too many fish are being caught from one area. So a lot of times fisheries will be located in certain spots and will oftentimes concentrate a lot of their fishing into those specific areas, which can lead to a bunch of depletion of those species that are common in those areas. So some impacts from unsustainable fishing include bycatch, entanglement, and ghost fishing. So bycatch is the process that I mentioned earlier, where during bottom trawling, they actually remove a bunch of species that are not targeted, and that's referred to bycatch. There's also entanglement, which is when a lot of times things like nets are disposed of in the ocean, and then animals can very easily get entangled in those nets and oftentimes can asphyxiate. So for example, down here we have a picture of a turtle, which are very commonly shown to be entangled in different types of nets and things along those lines, which is super duper sad. And then we also have ghost fishing, which is a more general term that just refers to animals that are being impacted by like disposed of fishery products, if that makes sense. So like nets, fishing lines, stuff like that, those can oftentimes kill small animals, which is so sad. So that's referred to ghost fishing. And for the main stuff that's in the middle, such as our statistics, please feel free to come up and see those when we're presenting over there, because we totally want to share more with you.
All right, so let's move on to the good news, because there definitely is a lot of good news. So right here we have a little blurb. We're just talking about how the annual catch limits that we've inputted, they have been pretty effective with only 10% of them being exceeded. We're doing a lot of work on restoring overfished fish stocks. So we're having less and less fish species being overfished, as well as 47 fish stocks being restored since 2000. And we've also, if you can see over here, this is a turtle exclusion device, and these are some streamers. These are just examples of innovations that we have used to decrease the number of animal deaths that we don't want, including seabirds, dolphins, turtles, etc. So over here, we have a little flap for you to read. These are just a few organizations that you should know about if you want to get involved or just want to learn more. So this one's a pretty big one, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the NOAA. There's also the Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch, which is all the way in NorCal if you want to go visit the actual aquarium. But right down here, we have a little QR code for you to visit. It just gives you some information on what fish you want to eat, what fish you want to look out for, and where to get it from. So here's a picture of a turtle exclusion device. I've heard of it be referred to as a reverse colander. It actually lets what you want go through, and then the things that you don't want, it'll block it from going in, like turtles. So a few things that you can do to stay engaged is, a really big one is volunteer work, so like what we're doing right now, but if you focus it more on sustainability, you can either go to the aquariums, you can go see what they need help with and spread information, or you can go and contact any of these organizations. They always have volunteer work such as field work. You can be politically educated and active. You should try and do some research on your own, vote for political officials that have any focuses or impacts on your sustainability goals. And also a big way as consumers is just to focus on where and what you buy. So research companies, you can always go to this QR code. Just for example, if you're trying to get salmon, you can see what specific species or subtype of salmon that you want to go for, and also where to get it from. And that's about it. But feel free to ask us any questions. We have a lot more statistics on our papers over there.
Thank you so much. All right, our next group is going to be talking to you about ocean acidification.
Yay. All right, so I'm gonna sing a little bit. Hope you guys like it. All right. Look at our oceans. Isn't it neat? Its ecosystems are just hard to beat. Wait, let me start that again. Take two. Look at our oceans. Aren't they neat? Its ecosystems are just hard to beat. What if I told you that they could all be in jeopardy because of ocean acidification? Now what's that, you just might inquire?
What's that? Are we all gonna die?
Well, don't fret. That's why we're here, to help you learn more. All right, guys. Thank you. All right. So basically today, my name is Bella. This is Elizabeth and Camilla, and we're here to help you guys learn more about ocean acidification. For our presentation, we're going to discuss what the science behind why this issue occurs, what scientists are saying about the rate of change, its effects on marine ecosystems and human communities, some of the things that have been done to mitigate this issue, and also what you guys can do to help out. So I'm going to pass it on to Elizabeth.
Okay, so thank you so much. So basically, ocean acidification is the result of CO2 in our atmosphere reacting with the water in our oceans. A lot of times when this happens, they actually steal the carbonic acid, which a lot of shellfish as well as coral rely on in order to make their shells. Because of this, the scientists have actually predicted that we would drop from 8.05 to 7.75 pH. And although that seems like a really small difference, it actually does make big impacts. If you actually look on this side of our board, you can actually see the devastating effects of this drop in pH. It's predicted by the end of the century that some of these creatures, such as sea urchins, oysters, small mollusks, they actually will disappear completely. As well as some of our coral reefs. The Great Barrier Reef is also a great example. 67% of it has already been lost due to ocean acidification. 95% has already been bleached. And despite our best conservation efforts, it's actually predicted that by the end of the century, regardless of how much we try, they will actually die out in its entirety. And so it does also affect human communities, which Bella will actually talk about.
All right, so ocean acidification doesn't just affect marine organisms, but it also affects human communities as well. There's a lot of like socioeconomic impacts. For example, in the mollusk industry alone, the production loss in this industry could amount to up to $6 billion US, and by 2100, this could be valued at up to $100 billion. So obviously this is a really big economic issue as well. It's also important to note that this issue disproportionately affects coastal communities in Asia, especially ones dependent on ocean ecological services such as ecotourism, aquaculture, fisheries, and shoreline protection from natural disasters. So with that said, Camilla is going to talk about some mitigation measures that have been done to combat this issue and also what you guys can do to help.
So on the marine ecosystem side, a study found that increased biodiversity helped hard-bottom ecosystems like coral build their shells and increase their mass. Additionally, a project like SeaMate was designed to remove CO2 from the ocean water using electricity and electrochemistry. Additionally, something like seagrass can also be used to remove CO2 from the ocean. From a human community standpoint, opening shellfish hatcheries in places where ocean acidification is not as significant is also a possible solution. Also, another solution is harvesting organisms that benefit from ocean acidification for human consumption. Now, some ways that you can personally help is starting to volunteer, minimizing your carbon footprint, using reef-safe sunscreen, and much more, which you can come up to us to talk a little bit more about, as well as some of the organizations who are actively working on the issue. Thank you.
Yeah, so before our presentation, we asked you guys to answer whether you guys have eaten seafood or shellfish or not. And it looks like most people, which makes sense since we're right by the ocean, have consumed seafood at some point. So what we're trying to demonstrate here is that even though the effects of ocean acidification seem really broad, they are far-reaching, and they don't just affect people in Asia, but also people right here in Dana Point. So yes. If you guys have more questions, then you can visit our booth later on.
Thank you so much. All right. So the next one you're going to hear about is an issue that is one of the reasons you've all come here today, which is ocean pollution. So, of course, today the cleanup, you noticed a lot of what you were picking up, and what I looked at was plastic, but we also have ocean pollution that comes from the water quality and from sewage and waste treatment. And so I've asked this group to cover kind of ocean pollution as a topic really broadly. So
yeah. Thank you. So an interesting thing that I learned today was that in these events right here, we pick up over 200 pounds of trash, which is kind of crazy. I didn't think we got that much trash from one event like this. Even like a well manicured like harbor like this, there's a lot of trash that can be picked up. But basically, you can categorize plastic pollution into two different things. There's macro.
Hold the mic up a little closer.
Oh, sorry. Macroplastics and microplastics. And microplastics are the smaller pieces, and macro are a little bit bigger. It's like litter, like debris, stuff like that. Currently, there's about 5.25 trillion macro and micro plastic pollution in our oceans. And every day, 8 million pieces of plastic enter our oceans, which is a big number. We did a case study, or there was a case study done in Tokyo where they basically saw that 80 to 85% of the seabed debris in Tokyo Bay is plastic. So it's all like falling down to the bottom of the ocean. And those impacts of this are basically animals ingest the plastic, and it's just not good for them. But for mitigation purposes, you can refuse use of plastic, recycle plastic bags and bottles, and rethink different product materials that you're consuming.
Hello. Okay, so on to sewage pollution in our oceans. Around more than 4.8 million tons of sewage and wastewater is discharged into the ocean every day, and over 80% of the sewage discharged globally is untreated and raw sewage, which contains a lot of harmful contaminants and other pollutants that include bacteria, microbacteria, microplastics, trace metals, and organic matter. Organic matter is prone to bacterial decay, which takes up oxygen in the ocean, and also release ammonia, which promotes the development of algal blooms. And algal blooms also reduce oxygen levels in the ocean and are very toxic and fatal to marine life in the oceans, as well as humans that come in contact to them. Combined with several other factors, the nutrient runoff from agricultural practices on land, the lowered oxygen levels in our oceans are causing dead zones in our ocean that have expanded for more than 245,000 square kilometers in our oceans, and over 400 marine ecosystems are affected currently. Strategies to mitigate sewage pollution and wastewater pollution include the improvement of sewage and wastewater treatment systems that we currently have in place. Another strategy would be to establish constructed wetlands, which not only are effective in filtering sediments and trace metals in our oceans, but they are also more effective as they do not require that much electricity to maintain compared to regular sewage systems. And they are also very valuable ecosystems in itself, as they can promote habitable environments and promote biodiversity. Some organizations that are currently working on these issues include Stab to Trash and the Ocean Cleanup, which is a nonprofit that's developing technology to stop trash that's entering the oceans. Another organization is the Ocean Sewage Alliance, which it has a mission to establish constructed wetlands. And they also supported the development of the Prado constructed wetlands here in Orange County. And on to how you can help.
So just a few ways that you can help is not flushing, a list of things like baby wipes, medications, cleaning products, using your right to vote and look for policies that help mitigate solutions. Also, using non-plastic things and reusable things, and volunteering at events like this too really helps.
Thank you so much. We have our final group presentation now, and then I'll just have a few closing words after this, and this topic is on ocean warming, but I think you can start to see how, even though we have these 5 separate topics, they're really all sort of well integrated and related to one another.
Hi everybody, my name is Chantal and that's William, and today we'll be presenting on global ocean warming. So what is global ocean warming? It's a phenomenon that arose around the 1800s or 1880s, so around the Industrial Revolution, and it's basically our sea levels or our sea temperatures are rising at an alarming rate. Current projections indicate that the ocean temperature will increase by 33 degrees Fahrenheit by 2100. And so just to give you some perspective, right now it's like 60 degrees. So imagine a 90-degree day weather day. So that's a lot. And why does this matter? Well, currently we're seeing drastic environmental changes already, such as coral bleaching and sea level rise. Something that more directly affects us is the rise of pathogenic bacteria that thrive in the warmer waters, such as Vibrio. And Vibrio causes diseases such as cholera and fibrosis. Something interesting that happened in 2022 is that 26 countries reported cholera flare-ups in the first 9 months. And to give you another perspective, in the past 5 years, only 20 countries reported cholera flare-ups. So what causes global ocean warming? Well, the ocean is a great absorber for heat because water has a high specific heat capacity, which means that it can absorb a lot of heat before a difference in temperature is made. And so the main source of heat for the ocean is actually above us, covered right now, but it's the sun. However, in terms of atmospheric heat, 90% of that which the ocean absorbs is actually caused by human activities. So greenhouse gases, they trap heat in the atmosphere, which the ocean absorbs. And when the ocean absorbs that heat, it'll rise, as well as produce a lot of water vapor, which contributes to a lot of extreme weather events such as storms and hurricanes. And with all these scary statistics, how can we improve things?
Thank you, Chantal. Well, there's actually a lot of ways that we can reduce this and that have been tried over the past years since the Industrial Revolution in the 1880s, as she was mentioning. But the Jean-Paul Gattuso, in a study that we found, addresses 4 of the main categories in a study about the effects on ocean warming. Those 4 categories are the protection of biota and marine ecosystems, addressing the causes of climate change, solar radiation management, as well as manipulation of biological and ecological adaptation. The first 2 that I was mentioning about primarily help to decrease the amount of greenhouse gases that are in the atmosphere. The second one, solar radiation management, those are basically to help us more in the long run. So to meet our goal of the IPCC's goal and the Paris Climate Agreement goal to decrease to only let the temperature in the atmosphere increase by 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius by the year 2100. The second 2 focus primarily on effects in the short run. So in the short term, it's important to do a lot so that we can help our coral reefs that are bleaching immediately so that they don't go extinct or they don't become even more endangered than they already are. So focusing on the protection of biota and marine ecosystems. We can do this through decreasing the release of human harmful substances through things like Stand Up to Trash and other events like that, increasing the amount of marine protected areas that we have, like the Dana Point one just across the Ocean Institute. And then the next part that's important in the short run is the manipulation of biological and ecological adaptation. So there's a couple ways that are outlined here, but there's many more that have been tried over the years. So assisted evolution and relocation and restoration. A couple ways that we've worked on assisted evolution are through thermal preconditioning, transgenerational acclimation, and interspecific hybridization, as shown here by the Australian Institute of Marine Science. But I think probably the most interesting are the effects down here of coral reef restoration efforts. So there's a few different methods that I've outlined here: the coral gardening, artificial reefs, and asexual propagation. Coral gardening and artificial reefs both have around a 64 to 66% survival rate, and they all have very interesting adaptation efforts. So the artificial reefs is one that just happened a couple years ago in 2020 off the coast of Palos Verdes Peninsula. They dropped around 70,000 tons of rock off the quarry there, and that was able to create a big new ecosystem for coral gardens out there, or for coral reefs out there.
So we hope that with all this knowledge, you guys are warmed up to the idea of cooling down our oceans. Individual impact does really matter. Feel free to come up to our board and ask us any questions. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. How about a big round of applause for all the students? This is a pretty nerve-wracking position to be put in, right? All right, excellent job, everyone. So I really invite you to spend a little time speaking to the student groups and looking more in detail at their posters. They have all written little research narrative, like 2-page handouts. So if you want a lot more of the data with all the citations, the research that they started with, we have those printed. You're welcome to take those home. And the Ocean Institute is actually going to put these posters on display here in their research annex for the next month or so. So they have extended holiday hours too, so I invite you to bring friends and family along and explore the Institute and take a further look at these posters. So with that, I think I can invite you to lunch. Thank you, Marco. Everybody thank Marco. All right, and thank you, Vicki, for inviting us and providing this wonderful opportunity for us to take the work we do in the classroom and actually have a community impact. So please grab something to eat on your way out and come and ask the students the hardest questions you have.